Okay, good morning and welcome, wicked smart listeners. Thanks for joining this week. This is Chris Preed with another amazing guest. This guest and I go back to about 2017, as you're going to hear us talking. So I'm not going to go into a lot of details here. I want you to hear from him personally, okay? A little bit about him. Ed Rush is a fighter pilot by background and a card-carrying member of the $1 Million Mistake Club. Is awesome. I read this in his book, and I'm like, we got to make sure we talk about this. So you're going to hear us rip apart the book. Despite failing kindergarten, Ed graduated from Top Gun. Really cool story. And despite typing like a chicken, this is his words now, typing like a chicken on amphetamines, he wrote several best-selling books. And all of his books talk about his fighter pilot experience. And when he speaks, which is how he met him, you'll hear that in a second. He has some cool hobbies, hiking, golf, fly fishing, writing his own bio in third person. And he lives in San Diego with his wife and some awesome kids. So I'm not going to get into too much. Let me just say this. Ed has a bunch of superpowers, in my opinion. And I can say that about him because he's a friend now and we've done some business together. But he has a superpower in showing how entrepreneurs, how to use their message to literally change their world by creating more income, creating more impact, being the authority. And his mission is to connect you with God and let him do the rest because, frankly, he's got this. And those are, again, in Ed's words. Now, I don't want you to prejudge that statement for me. I want you to listen to the interview. I want you to be open to reading his book because as you're going to hear me say at the beginning of the show, when I bring Ed on here in just a second, I put up a couple blocks until I read through the book. Enjoy. All right, Mr. Ed, awesome to see you. Welcome back to the show, buddy.
Dude, it's great. We were just talking about, it was 5 years ago the last time we had this interview.
A little more. Episode 84.
84. So what are you up to now? Like 700?
I think it's approaching 5. I should know the answer. I don't, but it's approaching 5, I think.
By the way, that's amazing. So for those of you watching, most podcasts don't make it past the 5th episode, much less the 50th. And that 6 years or 7 years or however long you've been doing that, that's pretty legend, man. No wonder you've done so well. You've had amazing guests too, not just me. You've had Ed Milet and some like legit movers and shakers in the real estate industry. So congratulations, man.
It's fun. Why are we back besides our relationship? I was gifted your book. I said, I follow energy. I'm like, okay, that's a sign. Texted you, said, hey, I got your book. And so let's chat again. So I just like having chats with great people that have great content and stories. So that's why we're back here.
Yeah, man. Let's do it.
So let's talk about the book a little bit. Tell us, I like to know some of these questions I don't know and some I do. Well, tell us what sparked this, first of all. Then I want to kind of shed a lot of my opinions on it too, because I'll give you my path to it besides being gifted it. So how did it get here? How did this book, Golf Stocks, come about?
So first of all, like when we did that interview back in 2019, I had just written a book called 21 Day Miracle. If you're watching online, it's like literally right over my shoulder here. And that actually was even today, it's still my most popular book, sold over 50,000 copies. It was number 22 over all books on Amazon at one point. And it was really like a hardcore human performance book. Y'all know from the introduction, I'm a Marine. I was a fighter pilot. And so like that high speed, low drag, get it done, like get up early and go do that. That was kind of my speed at the time. And it's interesting when you read books, like the first book I wrote in 2008, then 2012, then 2017, you actually learn a lot about the author's journey. And what happened during my journey, which was fascinating. So for those of you who don't know, like background wise, I left the Marine Corps in 2006, stayed in the reserves, but I started building businesses, building and selling companies. And I got good at that. I started speaking up on stage and teaching people a bunch of different topics: marketing, branding, positioning, time management. I still teach that stuff. And so when Chris and I met each other, probably was back in like 2017, right about then, we started working together. I ended up speaking at a couple of the Wicked Smart events, which are amazing, by the way. You need to go to the events. We just built a friendship and then a business relationship around that. It was during that time that I was having quite a bit of a spiritual revolution too. Although I wasn't really talking about it. It was like a little bit to my list. But at the time, my following and my list was very sort of like the Marine Corps guy teaching marketing, the Marine Corps guy teaching productivity, the Marine Corps guy teaching, and all the while I was having these conversations with God. Now, the best way that I can describe this to you is I would literally sit in my chair and I would just close my eyes and do some breathing. And then I would take out my journal and I would ask some very strategic questions. And lo and behold, God started answering these questions. Now, just so you know, You don't have to have any spiritual background. You don't have to come from any sort of like religious belief system. I'm not delivering it in any sort of religious belief system at the moment. I'm just simply telling you my story of when I started to have these moments and what was happening, which was a little crazy to me. At first, it was about me and my life, and some breakthrough stuff and some mental challenges like that. Mental blocks to get over. But then I started having like legit conversations about business deals. I would sit in my chair and I would start journaling in a conversation with God, like literal numbers for deals I would be doing later on that afternoon. And I'll tell you, Chris, like I didn't think he was interested in that topic. Honestly, I thought, we could talk about like really spiritual things about like missionaries and everything, but like the actual some part and parcel of business, I didn't think he was interested in it. And the intelligence that I was receiving in those conversations significantly changed my business for the better. I could point to legit conversations that I had that I knew ahead of time. Like I had strategic intelligence, if you look at it from like a military standpoint. But I'd never really told anybody about it. And honestly, it was kind of a little weird. I didn't want to really talk about it anyway. But at an event, I had about 250 people coming to an event, and I had a friend of mine encourage me. He just said, "Why don't you do one of those sessions and just teach people how you do what you do?" I said, "I'm not doing a session because people are coming for like productivity and time management and branding and business and persuasion and stuff. And I'm not going to do that wooey stuff. I called it the wooey stuff, like the mindset stuff. But I said I'll do an optional session. So it was a 3-day event, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Saturday morning, I said, look, I have this process where I could ask God questions and get answers specific for business. I would be happy to teach that to you. It's an optional session on the 3rd day. I said, you can come if you want. I didn't even sell it. Like I was like, if you want to come, come. If you don't want, whatever. And we had 250 people at this event, and like 249 showed up at this optional session. And by the way, dude, they're like atheists. There's a lot of Christians, which is the background I come from, but there's like atheists and Buddhists and Muslims and Hindus and everybody, like everyone in between. And I start doing this exercise, and like literally next thing you know, people are passing tissue boxes around, and there are atheists in the room who are having a full-on journaled conversation with God. And that's actually when I started. That's long before the book, but that's actually when I kind of went public with it. And when I saw the breakthrough that happened in the room with people who I didn't think were very, very God-connected people, I realized, well, I should probably start telling people about this process. And that led into the book.
But that one event gave you the aha to go, bingo, light bulb. I gotta talk about this more.
I mean, I honestly, I was going to do it once. It was not a comfortable thing for me to do. I wasn't like, man, I was like a business guy. Like I had my faith, but my faith was kind of way over here. And I wasn't really willing or wanting to teach that stuff. And I have to say, like I looked, and I've been in the business space for like 20 years, on stage for 20 years.
Yeah.
And I kind of looked down, honestly, I kind of looked down on I called it wooey, like the speakers who are all like mindset and like think big and you can achieve it. That whole like dream it and it'll become a reality, like that law of attraction sort of thing. I had a little hard place in my heart for people like that because I didn't think they actually really did anything. And then all of a sudden I have this tool that works for everyone. And it was in that moment. So first of all, I had no idea when I brought all those people into the room. I didn't know, like I knew when I asked God questions, he always answered, or most of the time. I didn't know if he was going to do it for them. You know what I'm saying? Like I told them, I stood in front of that group and I was like, do this and it will work for you. But I didn't really know it was going to work for them. And so I taught it for like 20 minutes. Here's what you do. Here's the question you ask. Here's the next question you ask. Here's how you write it down. Here's what you do with the answers. I taught the whole process. And then I just put some music on, like some like classical music or whatever. And I just kind of sat over in the corner and I was looking around. I was nervous because it was the first time. Every event I've done up until that point, there were 2 people required, me and the audience. And this now I have a third person, which is me, the audience, and God has to show up. Otherwise that exercise doesn't work. And so it was probably the riskiest moment of my life. And I'm like sitting over there in the corner, like thinking, how is this so risky? I've been shot at before, man. I'm a fighter pilot. And then literally I'll see people who are literally weeping as God brings them back into some memory or it's healing some part of their thing. And I at that moment, I realized, well, we definitely had something here. And the second thing is I almost felt like a moral obligation. Like when you know the secret, it's like you have to like tell everyone about it, So that's when I started making plans for writing this book. And I turned my brand around. This is another part of the story, but like in 2022, about 4 years after that, I literally turned my brand completely around, which is like another story, but that's that.
So, okay, so we'll go backwards. I want to come back to the brand thing.
Yeah.
So, talk about two things. I was taking notes, as you probably saw while I was doing that. First of all, to go back, way back, we did meet in 2017. You were in your, I'll call it your old self, or your old, you were speaking, you opened an event for Dan Kennedy in 17. And I'm like, all right, we got to get to know each other. I got to have him at our events. And that's how this whole thing started. I was in the audience. Yeah. That was
Yeah,
it.
and I love. By the way, I love those times, and I really, first of all, I love Dan and Bill, and like we spent a lot of time with Bill Glazer, me and you.
Yeah.
But it was just a different me. It was the authentic me. Then I wasn't like living out of any authenticity. It's just you grow and you learn new things, and as you learn new things, you realize I have to be communicating like the new things. So I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did.
So tell me this, Ed, is that okay? So you're in that session, and they're all in their own sessions. Is it more like a meditation, if you will? Like, is that how you treat it? And then because you're writing, so it's not eyes closed, or maybe it is in both.
Yeah.
Like, talk about that a little bit. I'm curious for myself too.
Great. Okay, I'm going to get into like a little bit of advanced stuff that's actually not in the book. But I'll tell you, the book lays out the basics for exactly how you take you through this process. First things first. For example, God's voice has been described in the past as a still, small voice. So if you look at simply like human evolution, even 200 years ago, if you were going to go from point A to point B, like today I'm in San Diego, the Padres are playing a playoff game tonight, so my whole family's going to go down. We got tickets right down in the good section, and it's probably like a 16-mile drive. We're going to drive down there. It'll take us like 20 minutes. Well, in the old days, you need to get 16 miles. You're going to get on your feet or a horse, and that 16 miles are going to take minimum like 5 hours, probably more like 5 to 7 hours, and you would just walk. And if you walk, like I walk a lot, just to go think, if you walk, you find you get into this very meditative state about 40 minutes into a walk. When people, went to sleep in 200 years ago, there was the sun went down. They maybe had some candles. There was no TV. There was no radio. There was no internet. There was no phone. And so they lived a much slower life. And because of that, literally their brain frequencies would move into a state that was actually very conducive for this conversation with God. We live now in probably the most disrupted, interrupted space. So if you simply look at brain frequencies, and by the way, 100% of what I teach is based in science. I could literally go through all the scientific principles. I could show you the part of your brain that literally connects to God. It's called your pineal gland. I could show you scientific research based on that. I've been literally under brain scans to prove the science behind this. I could show you everything, but there's essentially 5 brain level states: alpha, beta, gamma, theta. And there's a state when you're asleep, and there's a state when you're in like super high function mode, when you're like really, dialed in, or where you're flying an F-18 or trying to avoid a missile. And the states in between that are essentially the states between asleep and completely dialed in. And there's actually a state just above asleep, like literally in between asleep and awake, where you are super conducive to this very open conversation with God. So the first step I teach is simply breathing. Some people would call it meditative level breathing. I just call it breathing. And I typically teach people how to use their breath to change their mental frequency so that they can dial their frequency down to make themselves more conducive to healing. And I literally could show you the actual exact numbers. I have this little brain scanner that I can put on when I sit in my chair, and I could show you the exact state that you're in when you actually start to open up the gates for this conversation. So the first thing I do is teach people how to disconnect from the frequency of the world, the frequency of social media, how to reconnect to God's still small voice. That's the first part. There's usually 5 to 7 minutes, maybe 10 minutes in the exercises. They're all available. The exercises are all available. They're all free, by the way, online. You can try them anytime you want to. You don't even have to read the book. You should, but you don't even have to read the book. So the first step is breathing. It's simply nothing more than dialing your frequency into what I consider God's carrier frequency, that still small voice. The second process is really simple. You ask a series of 2 questions. The first question is, the format of the question is, what lies do I believe about, and then you fill in the blank. What lies do I believe about myself? What lies do I believe about money? What lies do I believe about my purpose? What lies do I believe about my family? What lies do I believe about my relationships? And you ask one question, one categorical question, and then you simply write down the answers. And I just tell people, write down whatever you see, hear, sense, or feel. God communicates in a whole bunch of different ways. And you'll know when it's him. You will. And you ask the first question. So the first question is designed to get, if you understand neurology, which you probably do if you're watching this show, especially if you watch all 500 episodes. If you understand neurology, you understand that there are neural pathways that are all created by habit patterns, right? So if you have a certain way of doing things, like if you have a beer before dinner every night, about 4:30, your neural pathways are like, all right, dude, time for that beer, and you can disconnect and reconnect those neural pathways literally at will. I mean that when I say that. Breaking a habit and reestablishing a new habit can take about 21 minutes, not 21 days. The book that I wrote back in 2017 says 21 days, but I'm telling you, you can do it in less than that. It's simply a matter of training your neurology. And I could show you video after video, literally of brain scans showing neurological networks disconnecting and reconnecting. And you can do it. Like, you have the power to do this anytime you want to. It's fascinating, the power that you have over yourself. The first question, the lie question, is designed to show you the neurological pathways that are causing problems in your life, right? So, for example, if you believe, like I believe, that, money is the root of all evil, or money doesn't grow on trees, or money will make me into a bad person, well, you're not going to have money. Literally, your mind will sabotage you from doing something that it thinks is going to hurt you. And the next question, very simply, is what's true. So you ask, what's true about money? What's true about myself? What's true about God? What's true about my purpose? What's true about my life or my relationships? And same thing, you journal the answers, write down whatever you see, hear, sense, or feel. And the book talks about how to take those answers and retrain your neurological pathways. But the process is unbelievably powerful. And I will just tell you, in my life, as an example, and I have thousands of stories, literally, of people who have broken free from massive addiction, people who have come out of abusive relationships, people who spent 30 years in business and never acquired wealth, and next thing you know, they're into the millions. It's amazing what you can do when you retrain your mind. And by the way, you'll look back, like I look back on myself 5 years ago, and I'm like, man, I wish I had known that then, because I was kind of like an asshole. Like, I'm sorry if I can. I don't know if I can.
No, you're good.
Okay, that's right. I just like. So that's great. That's great. So every once in a while, you never know, so it'll come out. So, but like, you look back and you're like, I wish I had known, then what I know now about criticism, about like how to deal with people online who say bad things about you, all that stuff. So yeah, it works.
Okay, who wants to be the next apprentice? Pretty interesting, guys. We started this apprentice program back as a July 4th, 2024 promo. That's where it started. And it was so incredibly effective. We were just going to run it for the summer. It was so effective immediately. We kept it. It's in place now. And what is it? It allows you to get into the community, the Wicked Smart community, for less dollars than the QLS home study course sells for right now on our site. In fact, when you go to smartrealestatecoach.com/apprentice-pod, apprentice-pod, when you go there, you're going to see that as an apprentice, you're going to get over $13,000 worth of coaching, the possibility for you to touch base with us if you want to 4 or 5 times a week. And it doesn't exist anywhere out there, frankly. That's why we did it. We did it for 2 reasons. One, no one is giving you the support out there. We keep hearing feedback, which is how this was born, that other educators are not giving support. They're just selling stuff. So it doesn't exist anywhere, and nowhere in the real estate education or coaching space. And we want to help you do one thing: deals. So we've wrapped the support mechanism around this. We've allowed you to get into a Slack community with the other associates who previously were protected in Slack, and now you get to jump in there and experience that for 12 weeks. You also get to come to the In the Trenches bootcamp, which is private. It's a chance to hang out with the family team and one of the coaches for 2.25 days in our conference room, roll up our sleeves, get calls done, get deals done. If you come with leads, you leave with deals. Absolutely incredible. I could go on and on. Go to the website right now, check out more information about the apprentice, and I'm going to give you the In the Trenches bootcamp site, because you don't have to become an apprentice. It just happens to be free with apprentice and associate. So 2 links I'm going to give you, super important. smartrealestatecoach.com/ITTB-pod. That's going to give you some information about the bootcamp. If you want to buy a ticket to the bootcamp, it's more expensive, but you can. Just to come check us out. About 1 or 2 people every time we run it do just that. Or become an apprentice, and it's for free. smartrealestatecoach.com/apprentice-pod. So this is what comes to mind for me. I'm picturing the session. I'm about 80% through your book. And my goal is to finish it before the interview. I came super close, and that's why we're here. Time-wise. Okay, so you're asked the first question. You're journaling it. What are you giving that? I know it's probably a different answer for everybody, but I'm trying to give these guys a little nugget, and then we'll tell them how I work with you, right? So what do you give it for time?
So I just recommend about 15 minutes. So if you can give 15 minutes a day for 7 days, literally, if you could just do an experiment for 7 days, 15 minutes a day, I find pretty much everyone can find 15 minutes in their day. When I challenged myself to do this the first time for 15 minutes a day, I did it the first thing. Literally, I'd wake up, walk down to my office, put my headphones on, do the 15-minute exercise, boom, and I'm done. Because I realized if I did it first of all, in the morning, you're really receptive anyway. Your day hasn't started. You haven't hit your email box yet. You haven't looked at X or Twitter to find out what's wrong in the world or whatever. And so 15 minutes a day for 7 days. And by the way, first 5 to 7 minutes is nothing more than just breathing. And like I said, there's audios that like lead you through this. So you don't have to necessarily go at this alone. You can if you want to. A lot of people do. But yeah, I'd say about 15 minutes, 10 probably minimum, 20 probably maximum. It's not a long commitment.
And let's do that before we forget it. What are the links? Any links you want, but you've mentioned that a couple of times. So give them some ways to reach you as well as the links. Because I got to imagine people going, "Mom, go play with it." Like, why not?
Yeah, the home plate, by the way, is God Talks. It's just the same as the title of the book, GODTALKS, just godtalks.com. When you get there, there's a place where you can put your email in. And when you do that, you'll get 7 free audios. They're actually all delivered on iTunes. So you can just listen however you actually like to listen to. They're delivered on every basically place that there's a podcast. Get into day one. I do recommend reading the book, like, at least the first 3 or 4 chapters. It's a very fun book. There's a lot of fighter pilot stories.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's a great read. Yeah, I agree. I'll say it so you don't have to say it as the writer. It's a soup read. It intertwines. Kim asked me, my wife asked me, well, so how do you like it? She started on the bike. I said, it's awesome because I know Ed's style. It gives the stories. It gives, in my opinion, a lot of the work is this mental space here, and it's just really cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I had fun. I laughed while I was writing it. I appreciate.
Yeah, I laugh when I'm reading it.
Are you listening or are you reading?
Old school reading.
Yeah, that's what I do too. You just reading the book, right? Because you sent me the picture of the book sitting there. That's what I do. I read. Everybody learns differently. Obviously, it's available in all formats, but yeah, it really lays out the foundation. Very simple process, by the way. It's not rocket science. I do take science, but we'll break it down in a pretty simple format. And I always tell people, like, you don't have to have, first of all, you don't have to have any religious belief system. Second, you don't even have to believe this process will work. Like I tell people straight out, you don't need to believe this will work for this to work. And the evidence for that is in the first chapter. The first chapter tells my story. The first time I used this process, it was about 12 years ago. I had walked into a counselor's office. I felt pretty dead inside, honestly. I don't like counselors. I still actually don't really go to counseling, but I kind of forced myself to go just because I was in I called myself a blank inside card. Like if you looked inside, you would have seen blankness, And it was crazy because I was traveling the world as a speaker. And like when I got on stage, I would kind of turn the magic on, and then I would go back to my room and I would feel so empty. And I didn't know what the deal was. Like I had a great marriage and really great kids and everything. It was just very strange to me, but I felt really alone. And I went to this counselor's office. It was a counselor and his assistant. We were sitting in this room, like this tiny little room the size of a closet, sitting on like one of those little plastic folding chairs, and I had a day old styrofoam cup of coffee. Like, they give you the coffee that's like out of that carafe thing. And I'm sitting there and I walked into the counselor's office and honestly, you probably had this experience before, but I was like, I don't even know why I showed up here. And I feel a little weird. And I was going to try to like leave, but I already paid for the time. I thought, well, we'll just give it a shot. And he goes, Ed, I would like you to ask God what lies you're believing about yourself. And I was like, I can't believe the dude, he's starting this with this question. And I was trying to find a way out. I was trying to figure, like, I wanted to just go to a bar and watch UFC or something. And I was trying to find a way out. And so what I figured I would do is I would pretend, like I was going to say, okay, I'll ask God this question. And then I would pretend to give the answers. And then he would ask me the next question. I would pretend to give the answers, and that would be good. And what happened was he said, I want you to ask God what lies you believe about yourself. And I was like, all right, cool. I'm going to pretend to answer this one. And I literally asked, what lies do I believe about me? And I was transported. It was like one of those movies where it was like, and literally I'm sitting in a car at 6 years old. And the book tells the rest of the story. Bottom line is I had this massive experience with a memory of my parents' divorce, and they're arguing about like where I was going to go to school and who was going to pay for it and stuff. And there's this moment in that memory where I just go, I'm all alone now, which wasn't true. It was just my thought at the time. I'm all alone. And that all alone literally became like a software program that informed about the next 34 years of my life. And the book tells sort of that story of that process. And literally, I'm in this counseling room with these two guys that I don't even know. I, just, like I'm a Marine. I don't cry. I like every once in a while I get a little weepy when Seabiscuit wins the race, or Rudy gets in the football game, but I don't like actually get emotional about barely anything. And after this, in this middle of this moment in this counselor's office, I'm like literally weeping in this guy's office because it was the first time I actually ever heard from God. And I will just say, I thought the first time I was going to hear from God, I thought he would be very disappointed in me. I thought he was going to tell me like how much potential I had and how, I could do better or whatever. And I've been doing this now since then for 12 years. His words are always kind and his words are always very gracious. But what I want to tell you is you don't even have to believe this will work for it to work for you, because I'm the evidence of that. I knew going in this was not going to work, and God showed up anyway. So I just tell people, give it a shot, man. Experiment. Life is all about grand experimentation. And so just give it a shot.
I love it. What do you say? I have an answer for this, but I want to hear yours first. What do you say to the people that put up a block and just with the word God versus higher power, whatever, right? Because everybody has a different thing. Because that guy called me. I think I told you, I may not have told you how he got the book to me, but he's in our community. And he says, listen, this is the phone call. I want to send you something. It's a book. I don't want you to judge it by the title, but it's this fighter pilot guy. And I didn't put two and two together with you yet. So that I got in the mail, I'm like, son of a gun. So I call him up. What was that?
Because we've known each other for a long time. That's great. That's great.
Yeah. So what I was getting at is within 6 pages, I went, oh, this is great. This. If people are putting a block, what do you say to them? And then I have an answer.
Great. That's great. It's an awesome question, dude. All right. So here's the crazy thing about this book. First of all, I have atheists who read. So in chapter 5, there's a story of an atheist woman who has this massive encounter with God. It was at that first event that I referenced. Massive encounter with God, right? When she came into the room, God showed up and it completely transformed her life. She will tell you now, her life is completely transformed. She tells you, she would say, honestly, when she first came in the room, she said, I'm just going to have a conversation with my subconscious, because she knew that God didn't exist, even though he showed up, and she knew when he showed up that it was him. And so I always say to people, like, first of all, you're welcome to come into this exercise, ask with whatever belief system that you have. And like with her, she was like, I'm just going to ask my subconscious. I mean, I knew who she was going to actually ask. And the only thing you need is curiosity. That's it. I will tell you, full transparency. I hate this is true. There's only one group of people that have had a significant problem with this book. And you can see it online. You see it all the time on my social media. I get like 40, 50 comments on every Instagram post. And there's always one of these guys out there. The only people that ever have an issue with this are the really super hardcore, like very conservative Christian people. That's it. Like really far into the God sort of doesn't speak today camp. Those are the only people who've ever been critical. I have to give the atheists and agnostics credit. I thought that they would be really upset about this book. They have been the most receptive people. And it's because of that one word, which is curiosity. As long as you're willing to approach life with curiosity and a willingness to sort of like test out your own theories. It's the wonderful thing, by the way, about science. Science is always like trying and testing its theories and trying to prove themselves wrong. And for some reason, we get really dogmatic in the religious space. People are like, well, I'm right and I'm always right. And when you can be like loose enough to know, hey, I want to find out what's true, even if it means not being right.
That's general learning, right? Like that's just, you shut off and I don't care what you're talking about.
Just curiosity and like a little bit of a willingness to risk. I always tell people in the book, I'd say these two things. Number one, if you're just willing to turn on your curiosity, it will help a lot. And number two, turn off your inner critic. The biggest obstacle to people experiencing breakthrough with this process is an inner voice that's saying things like, well, this won't work for you, or you've tried stuff like this before, or, remember that thing you did 5 years ago that you regret or whatever. It's just that. And as long as you bring curiosity, I'm just not telling you, as long as you bring some curiosity, it'll work for you. What was your answer?
I love it. I love your answer, and I would add to it for the skeptic. I call it whatever you want. Like be curious and call it whatever you want, but don't let that stop you because it's just an awesome read from the mental side of your life. Period.
Yeah, that's a good answer. By the way, I've gotten quite a bit of criticism for that too. I just tell people like I'm not. It's not my job to fully evangelize somebody in like the first 3 minutes. My job is to make an introduction. That I'm very clear about that. My job is to simply introduce someone to an old friend that they've known for a long time. They just haven't had a conversation with recently, which is God, and let that curiosity experimentation just simply take its place. And I tell you what, man, it's not an exaggeration. Every day I get another story. I just got a story from a woman in South Africa who, she literally lives in a community that they have no food. She's like every other day we try to go like find bread so that we can bring it back to our community and feed our kids. And she got the book somehow. She got the book somehow, and she called my team, and who knows how she even got a hold of them online or whatever. And she wants to be one of my coaches. My coach, my to be a God Talks coach is like a $4,000 investment. She's like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do it. I only make like $55 a month, you know? And I was like, I told my team, I'm like, could you just like give her, I mean, but I'm telling you, she told the story about her whole village in Africa is being transformed because they're using this process. It's amazing to hear these stories, and I get them every day. It's unbelievable.
Tens of thousands more to come, right? For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
That awesome stuff. Is there anything else that I didn't ask before we sign off? You're going to go, shoot, Chris did enough podcasts, but he didn't ask me X. What, anything else you want to share before we wrap?
You know, very succinct. And you asked, I think the most important questions. I think there's just like a couple things that just to begin to like wrap up with. First of all, the process that you're going to do is a process that has literally worked for tens of thousands of people. You mentioned that number, whether it's online, offline, the live events that we do, the communities that we do, it's probably close to 20,000 people, honestly, or maybe a little bit more than that at this point, based on the number of books and the number of events that we've sold. I have not encountered a single person who's done the process who it hasn't worked for. I don't know why that's true. It's amazing. But I can just tell you, it'll work for you. It absolutely will work. I can say that with confidence now, having looked back on all of the stories and all of the breakthroughs. And literally, I'll do this in rooms full of 400 or 500 people and see the actual breakthroughs beginning to happen. So just take a little confidence going into that. Take a little curiosity. I'll just tell you parenthetically, I've been connected to Chris. I mean, we talked about it since 2017. So what is that, like 7-8 years now? What they do and what their team does, I think is just extraordinary. This is very unsolicited, but I think community is really important, who you connect with and who you learn from. And so get to events, like get to their events and connect to their community too. You got some really vibrant people that are really growing, not just in the real estate space though, but like personally, this is a great example of that. Like this interview is not about real estate. We haven't talked actually one thing about deals, how to communicate. We could, like we've talked about stuff like that before. We could do that. And that skill set is actually really important, but the skill set needs to lay on top of the mindset. So if you are, for example, interested in growing your real estate portfolio or making more money in a more passive way, or you're looking to be better at like doing deals and working out, negotiating deals, get your skill set. You should definitely get your skill set. That's what you do when you follow Chris, and especially when you attend the events or enter into their coaching programs. But lay the mindset underneath that, because here's the thing. I mentioned this in passing, but the biggest issue entrepreneurs have, and I'm telling you, having taught and trained hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs at this point, I can say confidently, the biggest issue has nothing to do with the outside stuff. It has to do with what's happening inside that person's head. If you have a person who has a money block, and almost every entrepreneur does, it's a belief system that is stopping them from being wealthy. And I will just tell you, for the first about 8 years of my entrepreneurial journey, I was what I call a way station for money. I was a Grand Central Station for money. If you've ever been to Grand Central Station, people go through there, but they don't stay there. I was the kind of person that money went through. But my 4th year in business, I made it to $1 million, over $1 million in gross profits, and I did that for the next like 6 years after that. And actually, there wasn't much around in those early years, and there wasn't much around because I believed that money was going to turn me into a bad person. And so, truthfully, I gave too much of it away. I like moved too much of it onto other people's plates. And I look back on those years, and it was a mental block that kept me from true sustained and lasting wealth. And I will just tell you, get the mindset right and get your skill set. That's really the two things. There's only two things in business. There's a third, but really it's lay a mindset so that you can receive everything that's coming to you. Learn the skill set, because with the mindsets, you don't add skills. Like, you don't know how to do deals on the real estate side. If you don't know how to negotiate price and terms, you're gonna have a great mindset, but you're still not gonna have any money, right? So lay the two mindset skill set. And then the last thing, lay over top of that a willingness to risk and some agility. Because, like sometimes deals don't go through. That's the world that we live in. And sometimes deals go south, and that's kind of like the world that we live in. But as long as you have like a little bit of a willingness to risk and some agility, you're going to rock it. So there's the last thing.
I'm going to steal that model for tonight's mastermind call. Well said as usual, Ed.
Yeah, mindset, skill set, willing. This last one is essentially like implementation, right?
Yeah.
Which essentially turns into willingness to risk and agility as you go. So yeah, take it. It's not. That one's not patented or anything. That's been around for a long time. So
yeah. And I wish it were as easy as here's your skill set. You can go watch 500 Deal Structure Sunday videos on the skill set. It's all this other stuff. So I super appreciate you. Appreciate the candor. I love the book and the energy around it. And I know we'll have an encore interview here soon, and the thing will be, hundreds of thousands of people affected, I'm sure. So appreciate you taking some time, buddy. I really, really appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a real honor to be back on the show after all these years. It's been so great. I love what you do, Chris. Obviously love your team and how you bring it into the family and everything. So best wishes. We mentioned the website halfway through the show, but talks.com, the book's there, the audios are there. The book's like not even that expensive, honestly, on Amazon. It's worth it. And if you listen to audiobooks, it's me reading it. So you get to listen to me for like 3 days.
Entertaining. Oh, Ed, so you mentioned coaching. They're going to find that on the site, correct? They can find coaching or not really?
Not on that site. No, that's on my edrush.com site. But, yeah, I mean, you read the book, you get connected to our community and come to an event.
You'll find
the whole experience.
It's not hard to find.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome, man. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Really honor you, dude. Really honor what you're doing. So thanks for the time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, Wicked Smart listeners, that does wrap up our time together with my friend, Mr. Ed Rush. I would be remiss not to give you some things to take away, some things to utilize. We've got some really cool things. Most importantly, I would like you to have access to all my books. And you can just go to wickedsmartbooks.com/podcast and get those books for free. That's no shipping. You hear free book offers all the time, and you go in and pay $5, $7, $11 for shipping. Nope, we're going to ship it. Soon my office is going to ship it out to you with a little goodie bag, a little goodie package, and it is 100% FREE. If you'd like to talk to me personally about setting up your 2025 and you're committed and serious, you can go ahead and schedule time with me. Again, guys, I don't want to step on toes here, but if you're committed and serious and you say, yes, Chris, I will be coachable, show me the path for 2025, I'm taking on 6 people that'll be treated higher than the high 6 people are treated. And you're going to see why when you have the call with me. Just go to smartrealestatecoach.com/Chris free call. You'll get on my calendar. We'll have a great chat. Until next week, enjoy the show. Rate, review it, share it with a friend, and have an outstanding week.
Hey guys, are you simply sick of juggling a dozen different software tools for your real estate business? I know I was, and I know I'm not a tech person, so it was frustrating. A subscription for this, you got a subscription for that, and they don't even work together out of the box. That's very frustrating, especially in the real estate world where your best time spent is going to be out in the field or on the phone with sellers, and now you're stuck hiring a tech guru just to make all that sync up. So let's ditch the chaos and let REI Black Book handle everything. Automate your lead follow-up, track every deal, analyze things quickly for you, make offers all on one platform. In fact, with the Wicked Smart platform, we now have access, if you're in the Wicked Smart community, to all the other associates' properties. Can you imagine that? So you're brand new in the business perhaps, and your seller looks on your website and sees 20, 30, 40 properties, instant credibility. So you're going to get everything on REI Black Book, from our custom workflows for lead generation all the way to closing. It has it covered. Try it today for just $1, guys. Visit smartrealestatecoach.com/REIBB-DD. smartrealestatecoach.com/REI, B as in boy, B as in boy, hyphen, D as in dog, D as in dog.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Real Estate Coach podcast. If you're ready to invest in yourself and take your investing to the next level, check out our 90-day Jumpstart program by going to smartrealestatecoach.com/jump. That's smartrealestatecoach.com/jump, because now is the time to act boldly in this unprecedented market shift.